you introduce yourself, and then we'll start with the interview.
Modest Anapia, National TAC President, Teacher Training Association of Ghana.
I'm Samuel Opoku, the National Secretary for College of Education of the Teaching Staff Association of Ghana, SENSA.
Thank you. I'm John Newton Kumi, National Vice President of SITA.
I'm Saba Mauli, the Associate President of Jackson College of Education.
Representing
the private students.
Of the private students.
Mr. Minister, my name is KOFI TV, a journalist. We're broadcasting this show live on KOFI TV and will be rebroadcasted on TV Africa as well on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Agbado, editor of the Colleges of Education Weekly Journal.
All right, thank you. So we will stick to the ground rules as stated. You have your questions before you. Please don't go outside what you have written, what you wrote to us. Let's stick to the questions. If there's any other information that you need, whatever Minister will provide. Please, you are set to go.
All right, so before we start, I would like to use the opportunity on behalf of the various groups that are from the Colleges of Education to thank the Minister and then officials at the Ministry of Education for giving us this opportunity to interact with him. I must state on record that this request came long ago, so it's not something that just happened this week, as it's been speculated out there. It's a request that we made to the ministry as far back as November. So, on behalf of everyone present here, we would like to thank the minister and officials for the opportunity.
Welcome.
All right, so we'll start with the questions. Each group from the various or from the Colleges of Education will be given an opportunity to ask a question or questions. So we'll start from CTAC, that is the Colleges of Education Tutors Association of Ghana. They are represented by Mr. John Newton Kumi, the National Vice President for CTAC.
Thank you, Editor. Honorable Minister, SITA would like to know from you what your ministry is putting in place to be able to deal with the first batch of the SHS students who will be graduating next year, so that the colleges will be able to receive them and train them for the nation.
If you can explain your question very well, is it in relation with what government is doing every first years or it's colleges of education?
Thank you, Honorable. The preparatory work that you are putting in place so that when they come out, colleges can absorb them.
I think his question is basically about infrastructure. Infrastructure-wise.
You know that there are 6 of you attempting to ask questions. You know that you have prepared your questions long ago.
Yes,
you cannot explain anybody's question for him, Larry, and I don't want you to interject. When it gets to your turn, you ask your questions. If somebody asks me a question, I'll endeavor, but I have to understand and be on the same wavelength with that person to give the person an answer that he will say the minister avoided answering the questions. Okay? Okay. That's what I wanted to find out. And when you finish, you turn your thing off so that when I can also. Thank you. For starters, this would not be the first time the nation's tertiary institutions are taking on an extra load of or cohort of students at a time. We've had it with A-level and SSS students. We had it for some time. Because when we started SSS and they got to 3rd year before they left, they graduated at the same time as A-level students for about 2 or 3 years. We had a double cohort for the universities. It again lasted for about 4 years, when the first batch of SSS, 4-year SSS, graduated. And pari passu, they were graduated in 3 years group of SSS. So I generally ask, how do the universities deal with it? How do the university deal with it? The university coped those mechanisms without hearing of any infrastructure development. Frankly. Now all of a sudden it has become like, if you don't build infrastructure, we can't have, which is never true. The universities have handled it for some time, or tertiary institutions, without these calls, without nothing being made. But the truth of the matter is this government has made the universities and the tertiary institutions, the management, and we've asked and requested for plans about how they are going to cope for an extra facility in bringing the students. They've shared it with us through LCT and GEFAD. We've made appropriate arrangements for us to be able to build some infrastructure to be able to cope. There are other things the government is doing, like partnering with Open University UK to bring high quality distance learning education to us. So government would support the tertiary institutions in bringing up mechanisms to be able to absorb those groups. In other countries, academic years has been structured that they can even take a double intake within a year. So the universities have to be ingenious, innovative ways of coping with an expected increase in numbers.
Thank you.
Some universities and some tertiary institutions have done more than enough to meet the expected influence. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Again, we would like to know from you, as you promised CETA leadership in our recent meeting with you, that you will work on our frozen November, December salary. Can we have any update on it, please?
You don't have to have an update from the minister. Your salaries are not paid from the ministries. So the reason for you having a salary, your salaries being frozen or suspended or not paid, are established in law. Your heads of institutions did not validate those lecturers who refused to go to the classroom when the strike was an illegal strike. This is a country of laws. So it was not the minister that decided that I've taken anybody's salary. Every month, all heads of institutions, including my ministry, have to validate those who come to work and those who don't come. Then, nevertheless, your leadership made appeals to us, and we instructed NCT to work together with controller and release the salaries. And I know that some of them have been paid, which you have to acknowledge as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Furthermore, we commend you so much for your timely interventions that led to the payment of our research and book allowance. We would like to know from you if you can give us the same assurance for our market premium.
You see, he who comes to the equity table must come with clean hands. You will be the first person as a union to come to me if, because of the new arrangements, somebody doesn't meet the standard and we say the person should exit. So even for the traditional universities, this issue goes through validations before you are paid. And I'm sure if I read some of the Ministry of Finance letters, book and allowance for senior staff non-teaching of the colleges of education, that has been approved. So government is working through its various agencies, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and National Labour Commission, Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations, NCT, to get it right. And it might not happen suddenly, it might take time. But everybody will be paid. Everybody will be put in an appropriate structure or grade and will be paid appropriately.
Thank you, Honorable. My last bite. We also want to know what your ministry is doing, the plans your ministry is putting in place immediately to revamp the science and ICT laboratories in the various colleges of education towards the teacher trainees proper upbringing, because we've realized that they need ICT laboratories.
Did we just realize, since ICT has been part of the curriculum for more than 10 years, what has been happening? Is it to mean that the previous governments did nothing about ICT labs?
Well,
ICT has been a subject for how many years? For a very long time. And your question tells me that nothing was done. Working with Get Fund now, we have plans to remodel, restructure, put even more infrastructures in all the tertiary institutions as requirements. And we work with your management to have it done. It's not every school that might want an ICT lab. I've been to colleges of education with 100-person computer laboratories, built all based upon the small IGF they generate. So leadership matters. The idea that if you want to be a tertiary institution, you learn to play by tertiary institutions. I've never heard people shout about university says they don't, because you use, that's why you collect IGF. You use some for the generation of what really you get the money for. So I'll encourage leaders of these colleges to put on a different leadership style and the little that they get. I was in one college and I found that the whole place had been tarred. Some years back, it was a Sifusu. The whole place had been tarred. And I'd been to another college and there was nothing. So when I got the chance of meeting the principal, I said, so how did Asifusu get everywhere tarred and all your colleagues? Oh, we don't have money. Asifusu said, but we get the same money. We get the same money. In fact, the number of students was even less than some of the other colleges that we're talking about. So it's about prioritization in the management of the little that you have. And I'm sure government will support you as funds become more available.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. So we now move to Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana. They are represented by Mr. Augustine Appiah, the National President.
All right, thank you very much, the Honorable Minister. Augustine, as he said, the National President for Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana. We really appreciate your efforts, most especially the allowances that you pay to trainees. That helps them to also purchase some books in their studies. That notwithstanding, we are also grateful for the recent posting for the 2018 badge. We are much grateful. The Honorable Minister, please, I want to know from your office about the new curriculum and then the materials. Some rural areas who are having challenges with networks and other stuff to access certain things from the internet are complaining of books and other materials that will help them to facilitate the teachings in the various basic schools. So I want to know from the Minister the measures that government is putting in place to help keep this situation. Thank you.
Is it about the new, again, is it about the new curriculum in teacher training or curriculum in schools? Because you are tagged teacher trainees. You are talking about schools, which is about teachers. They are two different things. So what's your question?
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I'm doing my teaching practice. And then in the various basic schools, we are supposed to also teach the new curriculum. And it's in two folds now. That aspect, the materials that we are using there, it is not available. And then also, the new curriculum based on the BEd, that is what people are also talking about. But now, the question here is based on the new curriculum for the teaching practice students.
The old curriculum that was the diploma, who provided the books, who provided the teaching and learning resource material, you all go through University of Cape Coast, right? Or you are not, all your diplomas were not awarded by University of Cape Coast?
University of Cape Coast.
So that is their responsibility. Government doesn't provide textbooks for universities. Government doesn't. Right? So a university that is doing distance education or doing any curriculum, we don't decide on how, government doesn't decide on how the teachers get the book and research allowances that they are supposed to use for reference material to teach the students. Universities are a totally different ball game. I guess I must say something. The colleges of education are no longer part of Ghana Education Service. They've transitioned. I even came to meet the transition of the 2012 law. And you have to live within that transition. That it was the duty of Ghana Education Service to have provided teacher education materials when the colleges or training colleges were part of the teacher education division. Right? If you look at the College of Education law, but for the fact that you might not have complement staff, every College of Education could have awarded its own degree. You just now do it through an affiliation of University of Cape Coast. And you pay huge sums of money to University of Cape Coast. That is their duty to ensure that the curriculum, it is their curriculum that we are operating. That curriculum is different from other universities' curriculum or different things. So it is their duty to first and foremost ensure that the appropriate teaching and learning materials are available. When you come to the classroom, I'm sure as part of your training, you do realize that textbooks are reference materials. Right? That is why in one class, 20 students can use different textbooks for one subject called geography. Right? But the teacher might get its sources or a lesson notes from different textbooks. So when you do your lesson notes, as trainee students, as trainee teachers, you are asked to provide a list of your reference material. True or false? True. Why? Because as a teacher, you don't come and teach from textbook. No teacher teaches from a textbook. A textbook will be a teacher's reference material for the topic the teacher is supposed to teach. That is why the teachers have some subject area specializations, and for basic degrees, it is a general, basic general diploma because it's simpler, it's easier, and your training can allow you to understand. So do understand that. 3, this is the first time in the history that Teacher Resource Pack has been provided as part of training for a new curriculum. And if you had a chance of seeing that Teacher Resource Pack that was developed through cooperation with the curriculum developers, NACA, lesson notes, assessments, work assessment sheets, and everything was included so that the teacher can prepare for the subject. Note, what are the class 1 to the class 6 students going to study that is different between the old curriculum and the new curriculum? It is about how the content is going to be delivered, basically, that changes. Because the kindergarten student that is playing, we are not going to reinvent ABCD for that kindergarten student. My first types of writing, we are not going to reinvent it. But the curriculum's main focus is to change the way that the curriculum or the subjects are being delivered. So instead of a teacher standing in front of the classroom to talk and for the students to listen, we are expecting there to be groups of students and teachers supporting the groups and the children learning amongst themselves to encourage team play, to encourage bonding, and to encourage critical thinking skills and things. Those soft skills are what differentiates mostly this new curriculum from the old curriculum. So it's how you deliver it. That is why we've worked with detail to ensure that the new curriculum, the students who are going down in the year, they are taught in a different pedagogical way. I keep saying this. There are still subjects that are examined at BEC, even at that level in SSC, with no textbooks ever written. They are subjects. So how do we prepare those students all over these 20 years? So it shouldn't be made to seem as if without a textbook, teaching and learning can never occur. In fact, from KG to university, everywhere, textbooks are reference materials. The third thing is that I don't remember the last time government on its own published a textbook in this country. Textbooks are developed by private individuals based upon the curriculum. And even if it is government that is going to commission subject area teachers to bring textbooks, it would lack the curriculum. Because you have to bring the curriculum before they can develop the textbook. Because once you bring the curriculum, they can look at the areas and the methodology that is being described, teacher guides and worksheets and everything being provided. And the individual publisher can now take that and develop the textbook. That is why the textbook or the publisher has to take his manuscript back to the curriculum provider to get certification that that text or subject or course that he has developed the manuscript in is in consonance with the curriculum. So it's a very technical work. Again, in 2011, curriculum was introduced into the country. It took about a year before textbooks came. Check. We hope that that's at now. NACA assures us that people have brought material to them for approval. Once they approve, those individuals are free to sell those text materials and learning materials across the field because it will be appropriate and age-relatedness, appropriateness for teaching and learning in the schools. So you might write a geography book. The next, your gentleman sitting on your right might write a geography book. The one sitting on the right might write a geography book. But students might decide that his geography book is better than yours, so they'll all go there. But the content probably is the same. Content is the same. So we will get the materials approved and available for people. And for the first time too in this country, the NACA is requesting for teacher guides and learner guides, and even workbooks for some of those subjects. Like I said, I repeated, that we train all teachers in this country on the new curriculum. All basic school teachers on the new curriculum, and supplied each and every one with a new teacher resource pack. We call it a teacher resource pack because it was not only lesson notes, it was lesson notes plus work assessment sheets and yearly workbooks and things like that, so that no teacher can feel incapacitated because of the new curriculum. Everything has been given.
All right, thank you very much. So,
are you done with the question?
So we now move to the Colleges of Education and Teaching Staff Association of Ghana, SENSAC. They are represented by Mr. Samuel Opoku, the National Secretary.
Thank you for the opportunity. Honorable, I want to bring this to your attention, to solicit your view on this. After the passage of the College of Education Act in 2012, colleges started the process of migration from training colleges or with GS from GS to colleges of education to the single span salary structure. And during this exercise, the non-teaching staff realized that they had been shortchanged with regards to placement. In every tertiary institution, there is what we call analogous grades. There's a grade which is a related non-teaching grade, which is related to a teaching grade, and it's expected to be placed at the same level. But when the placement was done, our members realized that we were placed lower than the non-teaching staff. We started raising this issue of fair wages since 2013. Came to 2016. Nothing has been done about it.
You started raising it. These colleges were started migrating in 2012, right?
Yes.
Or 2013?
The Act.
The Act,
2012.
yeah. So you started migrating after the Act?
After the Act. The migration started in 2013. It started at the GS, the headquarters here.
The migration can start at the GS headquarters.
No, we exercise like a conference room like this. We started the exercise here. And the actual migration onto the single spine salary structure became operational in 2016. And I'm saying that what we realized was that non-teaching staff were placed at a lower grade compared to the non-teaching the teaching staff. And we have raised issues with fair wages, and nothing has been done about it. And our members have been agitating since, and we are saying that we may be getting to a point where we cannot contain their frustrations any longer. What is your take on this? Thank you.
Since 2006, people have stopped negotiating with their direct ministries. Everybody negotiates through fair wages and salary structure. That is why you have to follow the rules, because the labor laws were written in conjunction with the unions to make things the government deals with fairly and transparently. You claim you were migrated, it took some time, and you felt shortchanged. You have to work with the fair wages to get normalized. It is not automatic. Get it clear. That because you were a lecturer at the Ghana Education Service, you had some band. When you were migrated to colleges, you were expected to go to a higher band than when you were in Ghana Education Service. Some staff opted to stay with Ghana Education Service, and some staff opted to go to Ghana, to the new colleges with the new structure. Recently, we've had a similar thing with the technical universities, polytechnics to technical universities. And you have to, as a group, exercise patience and diligence and commitment to the issue, to sit with. Because you talked, it is analogous. Are the degrees analogous as well? You might find that now you are tertiary university, but who qualifies to be an administrator in the university? And what you bring in might be totally different from what you were in Ghana Education Service, your entry requirements. So before you shout, I'm being treated unfairly, the single spine envisage two things. People coming with similar qualifications will get similar pay because they'll do similar work. That is the basis of the single spine. You cannot go and claim, because you have been migrated, a higher one when you don't come up with that. So we found that these are teething problems that you have to develop. So working with fair wages and NCT, I know for a fact that government has started paying book and research allowance to both CTAG members and Sensac. I have a letter in front of me. Making following implementation of the above mentioned agreement, book allowance for senior staff, non-teaching of the College of Education for 2018-2019. So you don't make it seem as if you've had no room to agree and somebody is cheating you. Right? I have a letter, I can give you a copy here. It said, following implementation of the above mentioned agreement for senior staff teaching of the College of Education, approval is hereby given for the payment of book allowance to eligible, I don't want to mention the figure, to eligible senior staff non-teaching for the academic year per the harmonized staff position shown below, chief tutor, principal. Like you are saying, when you are chief tutor, your analogous is a deputy secretary. In the library rank is deputy librarian. In the finance rank, deputy finance officer. In the audit is deputy internal officer. So all these things have to be agreed on before you get paid. And I'm saying that this government, it's interesting that you say 2013 to 2016, this was never done. This government has done it and has authorized payment. So that as much as $1,000 book allowance. But before public funds can be given in such a way, the validation and getting it right should be done. Because if I go and pay somebody who is not qualified to be in that position, but was in that position because of Ghana Education Service structure, which is different from tertiary institution structure. And I say, I've brought you to a tertiary institution, so come, so moto, come and get it. I might be caught flat-footed. And so government does these things transparently, fairly, through fair wages that has all these job gradings and structure. So once fair wages agrees on the structure, then NCT can even construct the scheme of service that come to it before, apart from your salary, your conditions of service and everything has been settled.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable. My second and last question. The current scheme of service for College of Education does not recognize some categories of staff. In fact, when the scheme came, those categories of staff were expected to leave the colleges. But there was something they call transitional provisions. So they created what they were transitional grace. Transitional grace were created to absorb laborers, those in the catering, kitchen staff, cleaners. We realized that the colleges need this category of staff, to speak now, but they are not part of the scheme. So as some are hesitant, going on retirement, there's no way to replace them because it's a transitional grade. We must say colleges are depleted with staff with regards to this arrangement. What I will do about it. Thank you.
I'm not sure about what you are talking about, because the union that represents this group of people you are talking is TEU. And TEU exists in both Ghana Education Service and the universities. They exist everywhere. And TEU has got a bargaining certificate that negotiates on behalf of its union workers. So I don't know precisely what you are talking about. But I know for a fact that those categories of workers, some even do exist in universities, traditional universities. So it is not an invention of yours. There will definitely be a scheme of service somewhere in the tertiary system that caters for them. But like I said, you are being migrated. So you first have to go through the migration and the rest will be sorted. You first have to get the grading right? Then NCT can support you necessarily to do the scheme of service together with the Public Services Commission. But those categories of workers you talked about, cleaners, are you saying there are no cleaners in universities? So you have to understand, are you saying those same three categories that don't exist in polytechnics? But what you have to do is that it's not everything that can be done immediately. First, once something has to be done, then it triggers another round of activities. And I'm saying that in this thing, is fair wages that should complete the grading. And even when somebody, you can't let anybody lose out. When somebody loses out, they would have to find a category. If it doesn't exist in that new salary structure, they would have to create it for the person, so the person is not just not considered. I'm surprised for you to say that they are not catered for and some are retired. How do they get paid? So these things, it's not a minister who is looking at somebody's nose and ears and say, I like yours, I don't like yours. It's going through fair wages and salary at NCT. And your unions are daily. Your president, CTAC president and co, they are dealing with NCT and fair wages. You claim that they were not listening to you. How could they have come up with the structure I just mentioned? So it's not saying what is not true that will let you get something you think you deserve. It's confronting and negotiating with those who have the power to do it for you. And if you go to fair wages and they are not listening, it's because maybe you don't have a case. Or if you think that they are not listening to you fairly, you have access to the National Labour Commission. That is the system that has been. I cannot pay you as government something that fair wages hasn't agreed with. Because how is controller going to pay? Like I said, you said it has not been done. I've just showed you a letter because that analogous structure is well accepted. Teaching, principal tutor is equivalent to assistant deputy secretary, who is equivalent to assistant deputy librarian. So after this, then they will have to find where to put you on the thing so that you can start enjoying the benefits of. So you just have to start negotiating and be still there till everything is resolved. This thing takes time.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable. We now move to the last group. That is the SRC president for Jackson College of Education. He is representing the private and distant colleges of education.
Thank you, Honorable. And thank you for the opportunity. As been said already, I'm here to represent the private college of education. Honorable, there's been a whole lot of issues, but then with me here, I would like to ask this question and to see how measures are taken in place to help develop that of the private college of education. The ministry organizes donor-funded workshop and training programs with partners such as TTEL for tutors of colleges of education, tutors of private colleges of education that equally have MPhil, which is the minimum requirement, are left out of such training programs. These tutors are also teaching Ghanaian students. What would the minister do to rob the tutor of the private college or colleges of education during such training programs?
For starters, yes, they are teaching Ghanaian students. Yes, everybody is a Ghanaian and even resident. Does that mean I should pay the teachers of private colleges as well because they are teaching Ghanaians? No. Does that mean I should go and put infrastructure in the private college for a private citizen because the argument is you are teaching Ghanaians? No. We have a lot of private tertiary institutions in this country. Jackson College of Education is one. Just like Methodist University is one. Just like Islamic College of Education is one. Just like Catholic University College, Presbyterian University College, or Anglican University College. Just like other colleges and other private universities, like Ashasi University. That Ghanaian in that institution elected to go to a private facility. Why? Because you could pay for it. The other Ghanaian decided to go to a public facility because he can't pay for it. So when you go to a private facility, you pay for tuition and other things. Those who go to public facilities don't pay for tuition. That's why I asked my first question. Does that mean I should pay your teachers because they are all going to come out and teach Ghanaians? No. That's the first broad answer. So the emphasis on Ghanaian students or Ghanaian teachers doesn't change the fact that you decided to go and pay and go there. But the main fact is in our constitution. Article 25. Article 25(2) talks about that every person shall have the right. Article 25(2) of the 1992 Constitution. Every person shall have the right at his own expense to establish and maintain a private school or schools at all levels of such categories and in accordance with conditions as may be prescribed by law. So the Constitution says, yes, you can establish your private institution, but you can't use public funds to establish or maintain that facility. Right? So that person has collected money from students to teach. Now he said, if his teacher needs to go to continuous professional development, public should pay for that teacher to go. That will be using public funds to maintain your facility for you. So the Constitution abhors it. So that is why I cannot pay for your continuous professional development. And that is why even before me, nobody has paid for continuous professional. But you must also admit, it's always good to admit the positive things that this government has absorbed since we came, partly graduates from private colleges of education. Oh, you don't know about that fact?
Please, I know.
Okay. Next question.
So we have exhausted all the questions we have. Honorable, thanks very much. But at this moment, we would like to take your final remarks. We have a lot of viewers out there, especially from the colleges of education, trainees, and then the various stakeholders associated with colleges. We would like to take your final remarks, your message to them, please.
Thank you. I have a few words to say. I'm sure you have all come across a doctored WhatsApp that is going around teacher circles. Interestingly, when I was doing that interview, there were teachers with me, right? And nobody ever says that I insulted any teacher. We spoke the truth. And yourself, you've been a student leader. I talked about the entry requirements into the colleges of education compared to a traditional university. And they were different. One was 4 passes, the other was 6. Some, even E7 could be allowed to go, which you couldn't use the traditional university. That in itself presupposed that those who are going there are not those who want to go to a traditional university. Then the second phenomenon was that most, when they finished, they spent enormous amount of money on doing top-ups. 3 years to do a top-up to a degree. And most of them, when they finish the degree, that is why there's always a huge gap in the teacher capacity. Most, when they did the degree, left the system. Right. Now, what this government has done is that it has brought up the entry requirements to the same level as anybody going to any tertiary institution. And we have decided through curricular reforms that everybody is going to graduate with a degree, albeit early grade or primary or junior high school in that area of specialism, which is 300 times better than the graduation of a general diploma. Because one, graduating as a graduate puts you about 3 steps on the payroll that is far higher than as a diploma student. So that is what the government is doing for teachers, even in the colleges of education. Right. So those who are in college of education now, second year, first year, are all graduates. We met here around the table about 3 or 4 hours. He was at that time the TAC president. About the national service was here. About the national service requirement that everybody does national service, or else you can't get employment because they can write to your employer. And national service had written to Ghana Education Service. When you go to analogous professions, you talk about like nursing, they do their national service and they do their probation period, 2 years. Here, he was here. We decided that since that is a requirement, the probation period for a teacher and the national service should all be coincidental. And during that time, you get your licenses done. And when you finish, you'll be employed and you'll be posted. I'm sure people have been employed and have been posted. Then comes the phenomenon of some say we are 2017, some say we are 2018. All 2017 people have been posted. They didn't even do national service that way. They've been posted. Anybody who is part of 2017 who was not posted because he hadn't done certain things. At the time of posting, his degree or his results had not been released. Right? So government has given you a financial clearance that is time-bound. Somebody has not completed or fulfilled completion of the degree, of his diploma. Do you leave that space and the clearance expires, or you employ somebody who is qualified, who wants a job in that position? So that was what was done for that group. So the top-up, most of them who had passed got employed. The top-up was done amongst other basic degree holders, or what do you call it, diploma holders who had been lurking in the system for some time, who had decided to come. Then comes 2018. Some of them have not passed their license and exam. Some of them, too, their results have not been released. So we employed most of them. And their leaders came to meet Ghana Education Service. And it was explained to them that, yes, the financial clearance was for a certain number, I think 14,500 or something. And from the look of things, only 12,000 plus or so, 12,000 plus had qualified to go. So they will look at recruiting people from elsewhere, including those 2017 people who all of a sudden have either managed to pass or something. And you must admit that they've done so. But not everybody has got to the place. I wouldn't dodge that. The financial clearance was a fixed number, and those who had qualified at the time that the Ghana Education Service was doing were recruited. The first point of call were colleges of education. Those were the financial clearance. That is the group the financial clearance was catering for. It was not catering for everybody. It was not catering for everybody. You would all understand around the table that the financial clearance or the automaticity of appointment only resided with diploma students. And graduates have never had automatic employment. In the last 2 years of this government, since we came to office, we have employed 30,000 plus graduates, where in the previous 4 years, that government never even employed one. Besides the colleges of education students who have graduated, who is also employed. So these are a lot of things that government is doing since this is a closed group. I would say colleges of education, or for that matter, teachers, trainees. So when people came here, that all of a sudden we are graduates with a basic degree from University of Cape Coast, or for that matter, Sandwich, or for that matter, Top Up, or for that matter, others. We painfully, Ghana Education, the Director General himself explained to them that we don't have that financial clearance. We can't employ everybody who has graduated. And so this is the plan, and we would employ as much as we get a financial clearance. So I want to say that this government has the teacher in its concern. I have always stated that without the teacher, there can be no education. And when people talk about the Finland experience, the most qualified, the graduated teacher is the one who is even teaching in the basic school. PhDs and master's degrees, right? So this government attempt to ensure that everybody graduates as a graduate with a BEd is a far better option and prospect than the diploma. When you finish the diploma, how many of you or how many of the teachers didn't go and struggle with a topper for 3 years? That meant that the teacher, even when he was teaching in the classroom, was busy preparing for his top-up examination. And that is a distraction. Now the teacher, when he completes and gets to the classroom, fully abreast of teaching. So that is some of the things. The first time in the history of this country, the unions will tell you, the teachers will tell you, they are ongoing with donor support, Norwegian government and UNESCO, to come up with a comprehensive teacher policy in this country. When the whole of Africa, teachers regulatory agencies met, they'll be doing another conference. One of the first resolutions that everybody should go through licensing exams. Number one resolution. And in Ghana is not the first country in Africa doing that. President will tell you a fact, that in that negotiation, we didn't put the student or teacher trainee outside. They were involved. In fact, that discussion had gone on since 2014. If you check the dailies in 2016, Jacob Kaur, who was the Director General, said licensing will start September. Right? Because you have to be a professional. So that nobody goes to, and that increases your employability status. Just imagine for a second that I say I've established a private hospital. Because I've established a private hospital, I should not employ a doctor. I can bring any quack person and represent as a doctor. Would you allow it? So why should it be a qualified professional teacher teaching it whether a private or public school? Should there be a difference? Because you want to lift up the general ecosystem of education in the country. And the government didn't do it sitting alone. These things have been going on for years. There's documentation. Last week, when the unions met the president, they stated the fact, Mr. President, we are doing continuous professional development and teacher licensing. It's not every teacher in the country that will write a license exam. It's a trainee teacher who is coming. Lawyers or doctors don't write license exam every year. Once you get your full license, you have to do your CPD to ensure that you are continuously updating what? Your knowledge. And that's exactly so. That is why in the new GES, I hope you saw it when you went to do your teaching exam. Every Wednesday afternoon, 1 hour has been dedicated to professional learning communities. That is why you are working with the National Teachers Council to come up with what will constitute your CPDs and how many credits you need to be able to renew your license. That is taking the teacher into the 21st century. That is taking the teacher into the 21st century. So with a new curriculum, a new status that you are graduating, a new salary startup scale, the pharmacist who has graduated, who is going to work in the government institution, I'm sure will not be paid differently from a teacher who is also a graduate, if the single spine is working. So much so better for the teacher. Yes, it's true. Somebody says I'll cancel teacher training allowance. It was not only a teacher training allowance they cancelled. They cancelled the teacher training allowance with no option. Just go to scholarship students loan trust fund. If in the future a government comes to decide to cancel teacher training allowance, it will be based upon the fact that nobody is going to be shortchanged. It's going to be a fact that everybody is graduating as a graduate, right? But the teacher training or college or institutions per setup were not like universities. There's the difference. You have kitchens, universities don't have kitchens. You sleep in dormitories, universities don't sleep in dormitories. So our new infrastructure agenda is to build more lecture halls and hostels. So there's a worth of a difference for teachers. That this government truly believes a teacher is the center of the educational center. That it is, but it just takes time. You can't do everything in 1 year. You need to grow the economy that was already shattered on its knees before this government came into being. So in that milieu, government is reforming the teacher training curriculum, selection, promotion, everything. Now when you get a master's, you are promoted 2 years, not not wait for 3-4 years. So all those things are to improve the welfare of the teacher. Because it's not about absolute money alone. Because if you look at the absolute money, then the public teacher is paid better than the private teacher. 2-3 times. But the results that are being delivered by the private schools are better. Why? A lot of reasons. Supervision. Somebody will say teacher learning materials. But we went to the Ada area, 2 schools next to each other, private, public, both resource constrained. Still, the private was doing 3 times better than the public. No resource in both schools. Because one, the teacher absenteeism was 40%. One, it was 0. So there's a lot that needs to be done. We should treat our schools as if a teacher is not comfortable to put his or her child in the institution, the basic school that he or he is teaching, then it speaks volumes that we need to do a lot of things. So this government is talking about teaching and learning resource materials. You would see soon. We talk about the new curricula. When they did the curricular training, did you hear one teacher coming on air to say that it is bad? No. They applauded their curricula. I do agree that those who are supposed to serve food did horribly wrong. I do agree. And I do apologize for that. But the real essence of that meeting was to educate the teachers about the new curriculum. And people applauded. So I think together, this government on record has been more teacher-friendly than most governments. And the worst government for teachers was the previous government. We will cancel book and research allowance. The one that now you start enjoying, he said he will cancel it. If he says when he comes, he will cancel all those allowances again. He says he will cancel professional exams. What does that mean? Is it a profession you respect or a profession you disrespect? Why don't you say you cancel law professional exams, medical professional exams, nurses professional exams? Why don't you? Because they all do their professional exams. If you go to a university and you do accountancy to PhD, are you a chartered accountant? No. You have to. A professional qualification or a professional degree is totally different from an academic degree. That is why, even for some of the professions, before the university can start the